Let me make sure this is recording first. Good. So yeah, first thing we always have to talk about is Greece's geography. This is a map of Greece. Okay, kind of weird looking, isn't it? Many of you did a map of Greece. Some of you guys kind of had it upside down and sideways. Well, you might want to fix that. All right. If you look at Greece, this is the mainland of Greece, this northern part. That is the mainland of Greece. Let me see if I got it. Well, this is the mainland of Greece up here. Okay? Now, you'll also see that a lot of Greece is made up of these little tiny islands. Okay? But the mainland of Greece itself is surrounded by water on three sides. So what kind of geographical formation is the mainland of Greece? It's a peninsula, which is an area of land that is surrounded by water on three sides. Now, if you look at this physical map, you can see that there's a lot of different colors. What do you think those colors on this physical map represent? Elevation changes. And so, man, there's some really dark reds on there. What does that mean? Huh? It's high up. And so what does that mean they have a lot of? Mountains. So even though it has a lot of islands, even though it's pretty tiny, it's only about the size of the state of Louisiana. It's not a very large area of land. But it has lots of elevation changes. So it has a lot of mountains and a lot of islands. So we can say that Greece is a small peninsula with mountains and lots of islands. That's how I would just, in general, describe the geography of Greece. Okay. What is as you look at that, what do you see the most of? What is most of this map made up of? Water. Do you think that being close to the water, being surrounded by water on three sides, if you're on the main peninsula, or if you live on an island, you're completely surrounded by water. Do you think the water plays a key role in these people's lives? Yeah. Being close to the water was important for trade. Okay, especially because Greece lacked a lot of natural resources. They did not have a lot of natural resources. The things that they needed, like timber, precious metals, farmland. Imagine trying to do large-scale agriculture in West Virginia, in mountains. Be tough to do because of the nature of our geography. And so because they do have access to a lot of water, they can trade to get the things they need in places that are good at agriculture, places that have a lot of timber. They can trade with them. All right? Now, as you can see, the mainland of Greece is about 75% covered by mountains. And just like our mountains in Appalachia, they divide us. They really do. Nowhere, I don't think in any other state in America are the counties as diverse as they are in West Virginia. All right? Think about the county in which you live. All right? We have our own accent. Think about somebody from Wyoming County, like somebody from Oceana. Think about their accent. And that's not very far from us. Now I want you to think about somebody that lives in Kanawha County. Think about somebody that lives in Ohio County, way up top. Very diverse. And a main reason for that is because we are so mountainous. These mountains really keep us apart from one another. Ancient Greece was the same way. The city-states that evolved came in the different regions that emerged came about as a result of the separation that occurred because of the mountains. All right, it's hard to traverse mountains. It's really hard to get across them, especially when you had to walk. They didn't have 4x4s and tanks or anything. They had horses and their own feet. That was about it. So the different regions that emerge in ancient Greece become very loyal to themselves. Okay. All right, and we'll look. That is one of the themes that we'll look at. as we talk about the different Greek city-states today. But the very first Greek city-state, the very first civilization, according to the legends, that arose in ancient Greece, was Mycenae. Mycenae. Mycenae is the first Greek city-state. As you can see, it's right here in southern Greece. Southern Greece. If you are from Mycenae, you would be a Mycenaean. Mycenaean. Mycenae. Mycenae. That's how you say it. Okay? That is the first Greek state, or the first Greek polis. They were a warrior people, and they prided themselves on heroism. And a lot of their adventures were written down by a guy named Homer. Not like Bart Simpson's dad, okay? This is a different Homer, all right? He is an epic poet. Now, that doesn't mean he was an awesome poet, even though he was. But he wrote long works of poetry. And these epic poems were just long poems that told the deeds of great heroes, okay? Two of his most famous are the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's two separate poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, okay? You guys have probably all heard the stories of the Iliad and the Odyssey. You just didn't know who wrote them and what it was about. But, the Iliad, this lady down here, Helen of Troy, she's from Troy, which is like present-day Turkey, and she was kidnapped, okay? But she was married to a guy, all right? She was kidnapped, and she was married to the king of Sparta, all right? To the king of Sparta. And she fell in love with a Trojan warrior by the name of Hector, okay? And so Hector kidnapped her. She went willingly. She loved Hector. Hector kidnapped her and took her back to Troy with him. Well, if you're the king of Sparta, you don't appreciate your wife being stolen from you. And so it really begins what's known as the Trojan War, okay? Which is a war between Sparta and Troy. Now, this war that happens because of this woman lasts for 10 years. 10 years. And it's best, in the story told by Homer, it's all if it's an epic poem, it has to tell about the deeds of a hero. Well, the big hero in the Iliad is a man named Achilles. Achilles. You ever heard of Achilles? Is there a part of your body called the Achilles? Your heel. Why would a part of your body be named after an ancient Greek warrior?
Because then, something happened to him, so he died. His heel.
That's right. The legend goes that Achilles' mother was kind of like a witch. And she loved Achilles so much that she took him to the underworld and dumped him into the river Styx. Okay? And everywhere that the water touched him, he would be immortal. But she was holding him by his feet, on his heels. And so therefore the water never touched his heels. And so the only place where he was vulnerable, his heels. And so therefore, your heels are called your Achilles. Your Achilles tendon, Achilles heel. All right? Or if I use it as like a verb, like what is your, like if I were to say what is something that is like your Achilles, or I guess that would be a noun. It would be like, what is a weakness of yours? Because it was the only weak spot that he had. And during the Iliad, what happens to Achilles after he's really killed about 10,000 people in 10 years? He gets shot in the heels with arrows, and that's what kills him. Which normally, I guess, if you or I got shot in the heel, we'd limp around probably the rest of our lives, but we wouldn't die. It kills him, okay, because that was his weak spot. It was his weakness. All right, and that's kind of the story of the Iliad. It's a long poem told by Homer. It's fascinating. It's a good, people, it was, I'm telling you, it's a long poem, if it were put in a book, it'd be about an inch thick. Okay, it's a long poem. All right, people would memorize it by heart. They could literally memorize an entire book and read it off to you. All right. The second of Homer's great Greek epic poems is the Odyssey. The Odyssey. Now, the Odyssey tells the story about Odysseus. Okay, Odysseus. Odysseus was a Spartan soldier, and it was actually his idea to build the Trojan horse. You see the bottom one? There's a horse on the bottom. That is at the end of the first of the Iliad. Odysseus comes up with a plan to build this enormous horse as a gift, a peace offering, to the Trojans. What the Trojans didn't know is a bunch of Spartan soldiers were hiding inside it, and when they believed the war, this 10-year war ended, they all celebrated and were drinking, and then they snuck out after everybody was sleeping it off, and they let all the Spartan soldiers inside the city of Troy, and that's how Troy falls and the Spartans win, because of the Trojan horse. The idea of building the horse was Odysseus's, and the Odyssey is the story of how Odysseus gets home to his wife. Okay? And it doesn't sound as fascinating, but he has lots of adventures, and it takes him another 10 years to get home. So how long was the Trojan War? 10 years, and then how long does it take him to get home? He's gone for 20 years. So these are pretty long stories, okay? It covers a vast amount of time. So, it has all kind of neat stories about how he's on the sea and how Poseidon rocks his boat, and there's cyclopses, a lot of mysticism. It's pretty neat, but those are all stories written by Homer. Okay. Questions on Homer? Dope. All right. Tell you about Greek religion. I have a picture of a mountain there. What mountain is that? That is Mount Olympus. This is an actual mountain in Greece, and it is the mountain that is where many of the ancient Greek myths, they believe this is where the gods lived, on Mount Olympus. Okay? Now, Greek religion is polytheistic, which means what? They believed in more than one god. It's also pagan in nature. What does that mean?
They worship their gods to give them crops during harsh times.
That's part of it. Sacrifices to these gods. These gods represent things in nature, and so therefore they're kind of like nature worshipers. All right. But there are 12 main gods, 12 main ones that lived on Mount Olympus. Today we would refer to these as myths. Myths. Now, if I were to say to you that's a myth, what does that mean to you? It's not real. It's not real. They didn't call them myths. They thought this was real. All right? And so this was their religion. It would be like if in 5,000 years from now, people would be talking about like Jesus as a myth. Right? Some people believe it very deeply, just like they felt very deeply. Okay? So that they developed myths, which are just stories that were developed to teach lessons about the natural world. Like Poseidon. He is the Greek god of the seas, the Greek god of earthquakes, because a lot of times when an earthquake happens, what follows it? A tsunami, a tidal wave. Okay, and so that's why Poseidon had both of those things. Okay, so it's really things about how the natural world works, and also human behavior. Okay, because humans, their religion is not about how to save your soul. That didn't exist. They don't believe in salvation through these gods. It wasn't about going to heaven. They didn't have that. These were about, you better do your sacrifices and act right to keep the gods happy, or else what? They will punish you. Okay, they'll bring you bad fortune. They will cause natural disaster. So you better please the gods to prevent tragedy. Does that make sense? Has nothing to do with your own personal salvation. All right? Okay, so let's look at some of these gods. The main god is who? Zeus. Zeus is the main god, father of lightning, father of most of the gods. Now, the thing about these gods is they are not perfect. They have human qualities, meaning they have flaws. Some of these people, some of these gods, you would not want to be your friend because they're bad. They're not good people. Zeus, he's kind of one of them. Zeus was married. He had a wife. That was not the only person he had children with. He had lots of children by lots of different women. And his wife didn't like it. She was a very jealous. These are the myths that emerged out of Greek religion. So keep in mind, it's not about being good. It's not about being good to save your soul. It is about I don't want to be struck by lightning, and so we're going to play the Olympic Games so that Zeus doesn't get mad at us. Okay? All right? So Zeus but he's the main god. Father of most of the gods. All right? What about this lady? What's she the goddess of? Athena. Goddess of wisdom. She's also the patron goddess of what city? Athens, which is one of the main city-states of ancient Greece. Goddess of wisdom. Let's see. We got this guy. What's he the god of? Apollo. That's right. It was believed that Apollo rode a chariot pulled by these stallions, and this chariot was attached to the sun, and Apollo would pull the sun across the sky every day. You see how these gods are used to explain the natural world? So what do you think happens when an eclipse happens? Well, Apollo maybe overslept or something. They would come up with myths about these things to explain the workings and forces of nature. Okay? All right. He's also, he's the son of Zeus, just as, Athena's like a daughter. All right. What about this guy? Ares. What is he the god of? War. So if you were going to take your civilization into battle, you may offer sacrifices to Ares. Ares, who is the god of war. What about this lady? What is she the goddess of? Love. Yeah, she's the goddess of love. Aphrodite is where we get the word aphrodisiac. Okay, from Aphrodite, goddess of love. Mentioned Poseidon, god of the sea, god of water, earthquakes. He was a pretty important one because isn't there a lot of water in Greece? Yeah, he's a very important one. What about this one? The god of the underworld, Hades, god of the underworld. Brother of Zeus. He's Zeus's brother. And he was actually happy that he got the underworld. He thought it was better than what Zeus got. Do you see the three-headed dog? What's that thing's name? Mm-hmm. Cerberus. Okay, and that the purpose of the Cerberus is to guard the entrance so that no one living can cross into the land of the dead. So, this dog is the myth is that this dog guards the other side of the river Styx, where Achilles got dunked into. Okay, all right. What about this lady, goddess of what? That's right, goddess of the hunt, goddess of the forest, goddess of wildlife, all of those things. Demeter, goddess of agriculture, so she was very important. You can see her holding the cornucopia, even though they had no corn in ancient Greece. I don't know why there's corn there. Because corn comes from the New World, not the Old one. Hephaestus, god of fire in the forge. Very much he was seen as hideous, as ugly. And you know who he was in love with? Aphrodite, the most beautiful of all of them. And they were together. This ugly, tiny man who just worked in a forge and was dirty all the time. And he was loved by Aphrodite. So there's a morality story there somewhere. Hermes, The messenger God, God of business. You see his winged feet, like the Goodyear feet. That comes from Hermes. So he could move messages very quickly, like he ran on winged feet. Okay. Hera, goddess of marriage. That's her and Zeus. Not, looks like she's getting ready to wring his neck, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Hestia, goddess of the home and home life. So, she always keeps the home fires burning. Have you ever heard that expression? Keep the home fires burning. Hestia, like the hearth. All right. And as I said, Greek religion does not focus on morality. Its purpose was to please the gods, with rituals like the Olympic Games. The Olympics are simply just a ritual, like they were done to honor Zeus. So, now today's Olympics are not done for worshiping pagan gods. Okay, that's not their purpose anymore. But they were originally, the Olympic Games were intended to honor Zeus. That's what they were for. Each city-state would send their best athletes to Athens or wherever they were going to have it, and they would compete in things like sprinting and running and who could throw a stick the farthest and discus, all kinds of events. Okay, so there were also oracles. If you wanted to ask a god a question, you could go to an oracle, and these oracles would interpret God's will through a variety of different means, usually by ingesting some sort of hallucinogenic drug. They would basically start tripping, and then you'd ask them a question, and then they would answer it, and that was God's will. Okay, but that's how it worked. Okay, that's how it worked. All right, so we only got time to do section 1 today, so I guess we'll have to change some stuff on Schoology because I want to do section 2 as a review as well. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email or Schoology message. All righty, you guys. All right.